welcome to A Worthy Skull. Today we've got some awesome news from Games Workshop with a new BAR list, some new Errata and designers commentary, and thanks to John Rees of Can You Roll a Crit, I've also got the cards from Power Unbound to review, so stick with me, check it out, and we'll get on down to it now. Right, so into the BAR designers commentary and the Errata. Start with the BAR. First things first, they added 2 cards to the restricted side of the BAR list. First one is an objective, Long Strider. And when I first saw this, I thought, well, they're just really targeting Mollog, because apart from Mollog, it's actually not an easy card to score. There are ways of scoring it, but it's not an easy card to score. So I was kind of perturbed about why it was on the list. And the second card that made the BAR list, so onto the restricted side as well, is an upgrade. And it's an upgrade that we all knew was going to have the restriction on it. And that is Tome of Offerings. We said it when it first came out, it was way too powerful for a universal upgrade. So it's gone on to the restricted list, and hopefully now it'll be a choice as to whether you take that. I think the new way you'll see people taking the restricted cards will probably be 3 restricted objectives, 1 restricted gambit, which is ready for action because everyone runs that card, and 1 restricted upgrade in Tome of Offerings. That's my honest opinion on it, and that'll probably be what most of my decks are made up of with restricted cards. The objectives will probably fluctuate as to what they are, but most likely, it will be Superior Tactician, Change of Tactics. Will definitely be on that list of cards that I'll be taking, and the other one will fluctuate depending on what it is. So, that's the BAR list. On to the Errata. So the first Errata is a mains rule Errata, and it's from page 13 of the rulebook, Casting Spells. And it says to add the following sentences to the first paragraph of this section. Some spells require you to choose 1 or more fighters, cards, spells, objective tokens or hexes. If when you resolve the spell you cannot, e.g. because there are no enemy fighters within a certain number of hexes, the spell fails. In addition, if the spell requires you to choose a fighter or fighters, the caster must have line of sight to the fighter or fighters you choose. The caster is considered to have line of sight to themselves. If they do not, they cannot attempt to cast a spell, and in case of a gambit spell, you cannot play that card. Now, that's a really, really good thing that they've done there. Just making it clear now that if you want to cast those spells like Abyssos Withering or Sphere of Akshi or any of the other cards like that, you need to have line of sight to who you're casting it on. So I think that's really good, because beforehand you could have just stood 4 hexes away, not had line of sight, and you could have just hit your opponent with that. So the next Errata is for Stormsize Cursebreakers, and it's to do with Amis and Rastus. And you now have to add the following sentence to the Empower spell action on both sides of the fighter card. In addition, if this spell is cast, this fighter cannot take this action again in this phase. That is a really, really good thing that they have put on the end of that. Really nice Errata. Basically means that you now cannot reliably cast 6 spells in a turn, because beforehand you could have. If you had Amis and Rast, you could have just put the innate lightning bolt upgrade on them, either the universal one or the Stormsize Cursebreaker one that they've got, and you could just cast your Empower spell 4 times, giving you 4 successful casts with the innate lightning bolt, and then you could cast Abyssos Withering, Abyssos Unmaking, Sphere of Akshi. All of those only require 1 lightning bolt to be successful. That meant you could cast 6 spells in a turn and score the 6 spell objective. So I'm happy with that change. That's a really good change. I think the Cursebreakers are still going to be solid, but it is a nice change. The next one is Keep Them Guessing. Now that's got a bit of an errata. It now says change the condition on this card to read. Score this in an end phase if your warband made at least 4 different actions in the from the following list in the preceding action phase. move other than part of a charge, attack other than as part of a charge, guard, another action on a fighter card other than a reaction. So this is really good. This makes me very, very happy with Games Workshop, because the Games Workshop development team originally said that reactions were counted as actions and so counted towards keep them guessing. And they've now backpedaled on that, and they've not been afraid to backpedal on it. They've seen that the ruling that they've made has made an impact and made it too easy to score, so they've changed it. And that shows a good development team. A development team that's not afraid to put their hands up and go, we've made a mistake. So good on you, Games Workshop, for that. Really, really good. The final errata is to the 2 tomes that we've seen in the last 2 packs. So Tome of Healing and Tome of Insight. These 2 didn't have Cataphrane Tome written on them originally. They now have add the Cataphrane Tome keyword to these cards. I'm happy with this because I know from people who went to the Grand Clashes that at one Grand Clash it was ruled that they were Cataphrane Tomes. I think this was the one at Warhammer Fest. It was ruled that they were Cataphrane Tomes. And then the very next one at the UK Games Expo, they were ruled that they weren't Cataphrane Tomes. So it was a bit wishy-washy. This is perfect. Brilliant. Well done, Games Workshop, for clearing this up. And then we go on to some of the developers' commentary. And this is basically the developers talking to us and telling us the way things work. So the first one I'd like to pull up is the Guardians parenthesis. This was a big argument, I think, that took place on the Underworlds Facebook group, and Games Workshop has stepped in and have cleared it up. So the question was, how does the text in parentheses in Yuthari's Guardians Inspire condition work? And the answer is, this allows players to use an ability that removes wound tokens from a fighter to inspire a fighter from Yuthari's Guardians, even if that fighter has no wound tokens on their fighter card. And they've given examples. For example, Healing Potion, Healing Pulse, or Healing Amphora can all be used to inspire fighters from that warband, even if the affected fighter has no wound tokens on their fighter card. Note that cards like Tainted Vitality and Life Surge only affect fighters that have wound tokens on their fighter cards, so these cards will not inspire Yuthari's Guardians unless they have a wound token on their fighter card. Well done, clearing up all the problems. I think there must have been at least 2 posts a day on the Warhammer Underworlds community trying to find out whether Tainted Vitality and Life Surge actually worked. A lot of us were saying no, this is really good. The second one that they've cleared up, which I really like, and they've basically followed Bodmus, which is brilliant. When characteristics are modified, does multiplication happen before or after addition? For example, if a fighter with a damage characteristic of 3 has great strength, giving them +1 damage, and you play Lethal Strike and they score a critical hit, do they score 7 or 8 damage? Basic maths. Multiplication, division happen before addition and subtraction. That is the answer that they've said. They've not said basic maths, but they've said multiplication and division happen before addition and subtraction. So in this example, the fighter would score 7 damage. Brilliant. Easy to understand. Can't go wrong with that, I don't think. So I'm really happy with that. The next one that I want to go through, and I'm not going to go through all the designers' commentary because there was a lot of new designers' commentary, so you guys will need to check out the FAQ really and just really have a good read to see what affects you. But these are the things that personally affect me. So one of the things that we've had in our play group is Ghoulish Pact. And can I play my turn or ready for action as a reaction after my Ghoulish Pact resolves? Games Workshop said, yes, you can. You can play either of these reactions, but not both. Now, what was happening in my play group, and I know there was discussions again on the Warhammer Underworlds Facebook groups, that was a big discussion about this. Ghoulish Pact, effectively, the way you read it, you could have played my turn and ready for action as a reaction. Because the triggers are there, and it's 2 different timing triggers, effectively. But Games Workshop have now categorically said no, not both. So I'm happy with that. That clears that all up. The last thing that I was really interested in was The question that they had: can Spoils of Battle, Ghoulish Pact, Trading Up, or Brutal Sacrifice be used to equip a Cataphrane relic? And Games Workshop have answered no. So after all this time, no. The only way to play a Cataphrane relic is to spend 2 glory points. So I think that's a really clever thing from Games Workshop, because they've put these 4 cards out which would have allowed you to equip Cataphranes, and I think up until now it has been ruled that yes, you could. But Games Workshop, really well done. Again, guys, massive well done to you for the game's developers, Dave Sanders and all that. Brilliantly games developed here. That, if those 4 were allowed to do the relics, you would have seen the relic decks back, because it would be very easy to score 8 glory, or 4 glory, sorry, to put the other 2 relics on and have those. You need to score 5, because trading up you have to have an upgrade on, but you could put any upgrade on and trade that up to a relic. But Brutal Sacrifice, Ghoulish Pact, Spoils of Battle, all of those, if you could have just put a relic on, plus trading up, plus another 4 glory, and you've got all 6 relics there. I mean, that's less glory than you needed to actually gain before the relic, you know, when the relic deck was at its height. So another relic nerf, unfortunately, for those guys that love the relics. And I know a few of my friends and that have been playing a really decent Zarbag's Gitz relics deck. And Nigel, mate, I feel sorry for you, because that deck was going to be really good, but I think this has cleared it up now, and I don't think that you're going to be able to get 12 glory early enough to score the relics. And that brings us to the end of the BAR and the Errata and the designer's commentary for me. We'll now go on to the Power Unbound spoilers. So as I said, massive thank you to John Rees here. He's been a stellar chap and massive person within the community. If you don't know him, where have you been, or where have you been hiding to? Because he is one of the stalwarts of the Underworlds community, and he writes a blog called Can You Roll a Crit? I read this blog every single time he posts an update. It is absolutely brilliant. So guys, go check him out. It's canyourollacrit.com. Go check his blog out. It's amazing, and he's very, very graciously let me use the images that he's used on his blog for the Power Unbound preview. So I'm going to go through this to start off with just from the faction cards, and then we'll go through the objectives, the ploys, and the upgrades. I'll give you what I think of them, and then feel free to comment at the end of the video and let me know what you think. So the first things first is the storm size cards. So they have a objective called Focal Formation. Score this immediately if a friendly Rastus and a friendly Amis are both holding objectives after an activation. Scores you for 1 glory. This is going to be brilliant. I can see a really, really good Storm Size Curse Breakers, like almost defensive deck, a control deck coming out of Storm Size Curse Breakers. And this card will be in it, because it's a very, very simple score immediately. It doesn't matter whether you win the dice roll for boards or lose it, because you'll always have at least 2 objectives in your half, and you'll be able to do this. So I think that's really, really good. The next is a Gambit. It is Storm's Fury, the first friendly fighter, not a Gambit spell, but just a Gambit card, so a ploy card. The first friendly fighter's attack action in the next activation has +1 damage. Now this is huge, because although I don't think I'll put it in a Storm Size Curse Breakers deck, it's a +1 damage spell or +1 damage effect that doesn't have a range restriction on it. So this can go to Stormside when he does his magical damage. So really good. And last but not least, an upgrade, and this is the same throughout all of the cards in Power Unbound. So each of the factions have an objective card, a Gambit card, and a upgrade card. So the upgrade for Curse Breakers is Hand of Sigmar, and it gives them an innate smash. And again, that is really good. Amis and Rastus, Amis especially, she has a 3 hammer, 3 damage attack when she's inspired. With this innate smash, hammer, I call it hammers because it's a hammer symbol. It's really simple, but the proper terminology for it is smash. So she has a 3 smash, 3 damage attack. With that innate one, she's potentially scoring 4 hits. That's insane. That's almost a guaranteed 3 damage from her. So I'm really, really pleased with that. I think it'll find a way into some decks. I don't know if it'll find a way into all decks, but I think it will find a way into some Storm-sized decks. So next we've got the Thorns of the Briar Queen. So I'm going to do this in the order that they were released. So Thorns of the Briar Queen, they have an objective called Deathly Clutches. Score this immediately when 2 or more friendly fighters become inspired at the start of your activation. With the amount of movement that the Briar Queen's army warband has got, this is a really simple objective to score. So only worth 1 glory, but it's 1 score immediately glory, so really, really good. The gambit that they have is Freezing Fear. Choose an enemy fighter adjacent to your leader. Place a move token next to the enemy fighter. It's a good card. The only problem is Transfixing Stare is in. And unless Transfixing Stare went to the restricted list, I don't think Freezing Fear will see play. Just because Transfixing Stare is better. Because it doesn't have to be the Briar Queen. It can be any of you guys. So you can literally just sacrifice a Chain Rasp to get that off. And the upgrade that they get is Haunting Obsession. This fighter cannot be pushed while they are adjacent to any enemy fighters. If a push takes this fighter adjacent to any enemy fighters, the push ends in that hex. Again, I'm not so sure about this. I think there are far too many good upgrades for the Thorns that they already run, so I can't really see this actually seeing any play. Next, we have the Eyes of the Nine. Their objective is called Architect of Fate. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter is the target of an enemy attack action with a dice characteristic of 3 or more that fails. So this is basically a Eyes of the Nine Miraculous Escape. Exactly the same card. And it's doable. Last Chance, Rebound, those cards make that doable, and that's why in some decks you see Miraculous Escape. And we are getting more higher dice rolls because the way it's gone with the meta now, we're looking at consistency over damage or high damage. Because back in the Shadespire in Season 1, it was very much about damage, and making, when those hits count, making them count and putting the damage through in this one-shot meta. Now we've still got this one-shot meta, but we've not got as much of the damage increase because Incredible Strength, Trap, Twist the Knife, Pit Trap, they've all been put on the restricted list. That's 4 cards on the restricted list that are, you know, damage upgrades. And it's basically stopped the one-shot meta from that perspective. So now we still have this one-shot meta, but with the warriors that have the damage upgrades on are also being made to be more accurate and more consistent so that when they roll their dice, they're hitting and it's making that damage count. So this is a good card and could be used. The next one, which is their Gambit, is Forewarned. Reaction, play this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter. Before the attack roll, you can re-roll any number of dice in that fighter's defense roll. I think this is really good. I think this could see a place within the Eyes of the Nine because it's that reaction. It's, you know, during an attack action, before the attack roll, you do it. So it's not like some of these where you've got to play it before so your opponent can then go off and do another, you know, go off and fight against someone else who hasn't got that effect on them. This is instant. So I really like this. And then their upgrade is called Mark of Favour. It's restricted to Turosh and Navia. And it's roll a defense dice each time this fighter suffers any amount of damage. On a crit, this fighter does not suffer that damage. Now I thought when I saw this, John would be all over this, but if you read his blog, you'll see his comments on it. But it's basically the fact that, and I'm in the corner with John here, that I think the Eyes of the Nine need something, but Navia and Turosh and a bit of focus on them is not what they need. I think they are a warband that tries to do too much, and I think they get lost in the identity a little bit, so that's why I think they're one of the harder warbands to play. Next up we have Zarbag's Gits, and these guys got Petty Vindication as their objective. Score this in an end phase if you scored 2 or more other objective cards in this round. I don't think that will be seeing play. That's for 1 glory as well. I don't think this will see play at all for Zarbag's Gits. Why would you play this when you could play Victory After Victory and score 1 more objective for Victory After Victory for 2 glory? Just seems a lot for that 1 glory score. Their gambit is Leaping Loon, and I love the saying on this: "Stand still, you irksome little maniac, Oberyn the Bold. Your leader has +2 defense in the next activation." Now, this is going to require you to know when your leader is going to get attacked, basically. So you're going to have to watch for that wind up from your opponent. So I don't think Leaping Loon will see play. And their upgrade was Really Pointy Stick. It is a 2 range, 2 hex range, 2 fury or swords, 2 damage with cleave attack. Can go on anyone, any of the goblins. And apart from the squigs, because they can't have attack upgrades. It's a decent card. I would rather it have been either 2 smash or 3 fury, just to make sure that those hit, but it is a goblin card, so it's kind of in the fluff with the goblins where they're not really that fighty. And that's the goblin cards. That's Zarbag's Gits done. So now we'll go on to Mollog. I know a lot of people like Mollog. So his objective card is Territorial. Score this in an end phase if no enemy fighters are in your territory. This is brilliant because no one wants to come towards Mollog generally, and this is just rewarding you for your opponent playing that way. So I quite like that. It's only worth 1 glory. It's an end phase card, so I think that might find a way into the Mollog decks. The gambit that they got was Horrible Grin. Reaction: play this after an enemy fighter's attack action with range of 1 that targets a friendly Mollog but does not take that Mollog out of action. The enemy fighter is no longer inspired and cannot be inspired. This effect persists. So we've already had Maddening Cackle from the Thorns of the Briar Queen, and this is a similar card. And I do like it. I think it's really good. This one though, the next card, their upgrade, I think is absolutely brilliant. Now, anyone that knows anything about card games, and me myself, I've played Magic the Gathering, Legend of the Five Rings, both the LCG and the CCG. I've played Warlord Saga of the Storm. I've played Star Wars LCG and the CCG, and I've played a lot of card games in the past, and card draw is king in any card game. So they have an upgrade that is restricted to the Bat Squig, Spite Shroom and Stalag Squig, and it's called Spark of Sentience. And the reaction on it is, after this fighter's activation, draw a power card. That is really powerful. You think, if you've got Bag of Tricks and this, and you activate, that's 2 cards you can draw. 1 that you're pulling out and showing to your opponent, and then 1 off the top. Or, if you put it on Back Squig, for example, you could activate the Back Squig for a guard and draw a card. Activate the Back Squig and charge for another card, and score Change of Tactics with it. It's a really decent card, and it makes it that Bat Squig, Spite Shroom and Stalag Squig are actually going to have something to do other than just stand there and watch Mollog do his business. So I'm really, really pleased with this card. I'm going to be building a Moloch deck eventually, and I think once these cards come out, and this will see play. So then we have my new favourite faction that I've been working on, my warband I've been working on. Not painting, but I will be. But I've been working on decks for them, and I've been playing them in our local meta a little bit, and that's the Godsworn Hunt. And their objective is Worthy Kill. And it says, score this immediately when a friendly fighter makes an attack action that takes an enemy fighter with a wounds characteristic of 4 or more out of action. Brilliant. Going straight in my deck. It goes along with their objective that they had in their pack, which was for 1 glory to do the same thing. So now I can score 3 glory off of killing someone with 4 wounds. And I think, because of the way the meta's going to go soon, we're going to have a fair few number of 4 wound fighters in play. I think Curse Breakers, we are going to see a massive, massive, massive shift in how many, in people playing Storm-sized Curse Breakers. And they're all 4 wounds. So it's pretty simple. And it's quite easy to get to 4 wounds, because once you put just an upgrade on like Great Fortitude or anything like that, most people go up to 4 wounds. Their Gambit is Dark Portent. Reaction, play this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter before the attack roll. Rolls of a critical in the attack roll are not successes or critical successes. That's quite nice. I don't know that I'll find place for it, but it's quite a nice little defensive card. Does take off, it does mean that now they've only got 5 different results on the dice that actually matter when they attack you, and the fact that they don't get critical successes. So things like lethal strike, concealed weapon, all those sort of things don't go off when you play Dark Portent. So swings and roundabouts. Lethal strike's a really bad one because you don't really see, well, you do see it, but you wouldn't really play it against Godsworn because it doubles your damage, and most of the time they die to a stiff breeze. So and the next one is their upgrade, Writhing Charm. When exactly 1 damage would be caused to this fighter does not suffer that damage. When this happens, roll a defense dice on anything but a block or a shield. Discard this card. I think that's really good. I think one of the things that Godsworn really suffer with is the plink damage, and this will help them no end with that. So this might actually see a place in my deck. Next we have the Profiteers. So they got a objective called Steady Aim. Score this immediately when a friendly fighter's attack roll includes only successes, and it's worth 1 glory. Now I think that's a really hard one to score, because that means that however many dice you roll, they all have to score successes. So you really got to work the maths on this, and I think John's already done it, and I think it came out at something like 25% if I remember from reading his article this morning. So yeah, not a great success chance. 25% chance of scoring that objective. Their Gambit, Duardin Resilience. It is amazing. Insensate for the Duardin. Now I haven't played the Duardin yet, and they were one that I was looking forward to playing, but now I've hopped onto Godsworn, so I won't be playing them for a little while until I've done a bit with the Godsworn Hunt. But the first time a friendly fighter suffers any amount of damage in the next activation, they only suffer 1 damage. Anyone who's played Garrett Reavers knows how important Insensate is to your, to you. And this is the same with the Profiteers. So really, really happy with this. And the upgrade is restricted to Lund. And again, I don't know, because I don't really like the cards that are restricted. Apart from that draw card on the Bat Squig, I don't really like cards that are restricted to a certain person within a warband, because it's just, it puts more of a... Game 1, you might get away with it against your opponent. But games 2 and 3, if they know that there's a card in there that has to be attached to a certain person within your warband, they're going to target them. And that's then going to cause you to have a dead card. That means in a standard deck where you've got 10 Gambits, 10 upgrades, and your 12 objectives. If they kill Lund, you've only got 9 upgrades then. You've effectively put that in for no reason. So the card says reaction after this fighter's attack action, push them up to 2 hexes. So it's a good card, a good mobility card, but I just worry about the restricted side for restricted to Lund. And then we go on to Yuthari's Guardians. So their objective is Avatar of Vengeance. Score this immediately if there is only one surviving friendly fighter after an activation, and it's worth 1 glory point. I don't know about this one. I think they've got a really solid set of objectives already, and they haven't really been hurt by the BAR list for that. So I think that this won't make the deck. It's also really weird because their Inspire mechanic is all around healing, which you would think would mean that you actually want to keep them around. But this is almost telling you that you don't. You want your warband to be dying off. And the next one as well is the same. Bitter Vengeance, which is their Gambit card. The first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 dice for each friendly fighter that is out of action. So again, it's going along this Avatar of Vengeance feel, which I know is very Sylvaneth. Anyone that has, reads the AOS background and fluff knows that it's very, that's down the route of the Sylvaneth, very much so. The Vengeance is very, very much their thing. But it's not how this warband came out like. It came out like you needed to keep them around and you wanted to keep them around with the wounds to, inspire them. And now this is like a different way of playing them almost. And last but not least, again, is another restricted card to Anslain. I do like this card, but again, because it's restricted, I'll be really, really careful about putting it in my decks. It's called Spitethorn Arrow. It's range 4, 3 smash, so 3 hammers, 2 damage. Rolls of a dodge are not successes against this attack action, and you discard this card after making this attack action. So it's only a one-shot action, and it is restricted to Anslain, but I think it's very good, and I think it could see some play, but it wouldn't see play myself. So now we're going into the universal cards from Power Unbound, and I'm going to start with the objective cards. So the first objective I want to discuss is Champions All. This is a score immediately objective when a second or subsequent enemy fighter is taken out of action in this phase, and each one was taken out of action by an attack action made by a different friendly fighter. I think that's really scoreable. Not so much for some warbands like Mollog or generally Iron Skull's boys might struggle with it, because generally you've got Gerzag going up first and making the attacks and doing what he can do, and only then when Gerzag's taken out you generally bring one of the other boys in, like Bone Cutter. Once he's all nice and tooled up to Gerzag level, you then get him into the action. So, but for other warbands, I think this is really doable. Overpower. Score this immediately when a friendly fighter successfully casts a spell where there are 1 or more crits in the casting roll. Worth 1 glory again. Not too enamoured with this card, I must admit. I don't like cards where it's you have to score crits. I know John loves them from Can You Roll a Crit? That's why he called his blog Can You Roll a Crit? But I'm not too enamoured with it. Strange Demise. Like this card a lot. Score this immediately when an enemy fighter is taken out of action by a spell that damaged them, or by a spell action that damaged them. So I really like that card for some of the spell casting factions. It's another source for scouring, so it gives you 2 ways of getting that, and I can see that being quite good. Warning Shot is the next one. It's worth 1 glory again, and another score immediately. Is there a bit of a theme here of score immediatelys? Score this immediately when a friendly fighter's attack action with a range of 3 or more fails. I do like this card because it gives you something when your range 3 attack actions don't actually hit, it actually gives you something for them not hitting, which, you know, sometimes might make you go a little bit into the rage tank and go, oh, my dice aren't working, etc, etc, and it's quite easy to get that negative attitude going, but this actually rewards you for the negative things happening, which I really like. And going back to the BAR list and Longstrider being restricted, this is the reason why I think, people. Burst of Speed. Score this immediately when a friendly fighter makes their second or subsequent move action in this phase. Worth 1 glory. That is Longstrider. It is Longstrider. So Mollog still has Longstrider, only under a different name. So Mollog's happy. And I think that's possibly why they restricted it, is because they didn't want Mollog to have 2 cards that gave him 1 glory immediately for doing the same thing. Because it's already powerful enough what he does. So next we have Fusillade. Score this in an end phase if your warband made an attack action with a range of 3 or more in 4 or more activations in the preceding action phase. Worth 1 glory. Now, I probably wouldn't play this, just because there are better cards out there than it. Keep Chopping is a prime example. Keep Chopping gives you 2 glory instead of the 1 for the very same thing. Next thing, Staying Power. Score this in the 3rd end phase if there are 5 or more surviving friendly fighters. Worth 2 glory. 3rd end phase cards for me are very, very hard to include. The only one I include generally, and this is a big change from Season 1, because early doors Season 1, I was one of those players that was playing Contained in Denial and Loving Life. But I think now the only 3rd end phase card I would really play is Superior Tactician. I know Jamie Giblin of Cataframe Relic is a great lover of Oath of Conquest with the Godsworn Hunt. But I struggle with that. The way I play Godsworn Hunt, I really struggle. So I find that they die, so I would much rather have, all die. So I'd much rather have something like Superior Tactician, which I can score whether my guys are on the battlefield or no. And with the meta that we're in now, with this sort of back to this one-shot meta, not a lot of defensive upgrades and stuff, this card will be hard to score. Spike. Score this immediately after a friendly enemy fighter suffers damage and they have suffered 5 or more damage in this phase. Damage in excess of their wounds characteristic counts. Worth 1 glory. I will be honest, this is very similar to Massive Assault. The only difference is Massive Assault you don't have to do to one warrior, or enemy fighter. So this is with one enemy fighter. I think Mollog might play this because he can quite easily get up to 5 damage in one attack action. But other than that, I don't really think it will see play. Quite fittingly, it's got Mollog on the card, so I think it might see play in Mollog, but anything else I don't think so. Next card in the list is Choke Point. It's worth 2 glory. Score this in an end phase if a fighter is in each hex other than the blocked hexes in no one's territory. So in no man's land, if you block up all the hexes, then you can score this card. It's pretty good, but I don't know that I will play it. I think it will be a hard card to play, in all honesty, because the factions that you might be able to do that with, so Steel Hearts champions, etc., that they are generally trying to stay away, not go towards your opponent. So the next one is Grievous Toll, and this is worth 3 glory, and score this in an end phase if 3 or more enemy fighters and no friendly fighters were taken out of action in the preceding action phase. It's a is it worth it card. If you score it, that's a big score for doing that. That really and truthfully, at the minimum, is 6 glory swing for you. 3 for taking out the 3 enemy fighters, and then 3 for this card. So if you score it, it's going to make you score big. But is it a win more card? Possibly. Method in the Madness. Score this immediately when an enemy fighter is taken out of action by a spell that has Scatter, worth 2 glory. Now, there are some spells with Scatter. Razor More Jaw, I think, is one of them. And there are some others, but I don't know whether you'll be able to do that. I don't know how, it's going to be a very moment card. It's going to be one of those combos that you're going to have to put together, and the stars are going to have to align for you to score that card. So will it be worth it? I'm not sure. Shortcut, worth 1 glory, another score immediately. Score immediately when a friendly fighter is taken out of 1 hex and immediately placed in a different hex, but not as a result of a push or a move. So you can score this with cards like Confusion and Illusory Fighter, and also, I believe, Hidden Paths. But we'll see. I think that needs an FAQ on Hidden Paths. But definitely Illusory Fighter and Confusion are 2 ways that you could play Shortcut. So having 2 ways to score it in your ploy deck, is it worth a space? I don't think so. So we've done the objective cards, and now we'll go on to the Gambit cards. So first up in the Gambits is Galvanized. This is a Gambit card that's a reaction. Says play after an attack action that takes a friendly fighter out of action. Plus 2 dice to the first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation. So this is this consistency card, but punishing your opponent for taking a fighter out of action by giving you a more consistent attack in the next attack phase for you. The next one is Shadow Shape. It's a Gambit spell. It needs 1 lightning bolt to cast. If this spell is cast, the caster cannot be pushed. This spell persists until the end of the round. Now, earlier on we talked about the new Stormsire's objective with Rastus and Amis. This helps them because it's got that lightning bolt cast, and they've got an innate lightning bolt as an upgrade in their faction cards, and they can't be pushed off the objective. That's really good. So this might see play in that deck. I might put a Stormsire's Cursebreakers deck together about how I look, how I'm looking at them going forwards to towards the end of season 2 and into the beginning of season 3. We've then got Upper Hand. Reaction, played during a friendly fighter's attack action. When the attack roll and defense roll are compared, if the rolls are tied, add 1 success to the attack roll. So this is again about consistently putting damage onto your opponent. It's a nice little card, but it is a Gambit ploy card. So will we see that in play? As we all know, the Gambit slots are very highly contested already. So will that see play? Possibly. Keen Avarice. The first attack action with a range of 1 or 2 made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 dice and cleave if the target is holding an objective. I think that is way too situational to put in a deck. It's very, very situational. More situational than any of the other 3 cards we've just talked about. And so I don't think that'll actually be in the deck. The next one we have is Segut's Salvo. This is a Gambit spell. Requires 2 lightning bolts to cast. And if this spell is cast, choose an enemy fighter within 3 hexes of the caster. The fighter you choose suffers 1 damage and you can push them 1 hex. And this push must take them further away from the caster. That's not a bad card. The 2 lightning bolts are the hard thing because you do have... Okay, you don't get the push, but you do have Sphere of Axii, which is within 4 hexes for 1 damage, so arguably a slightly better spell. So whether it will see play in that respective. The next one we have is a Gambit ploy, Sorcerous Flourish. Please, GW, please, 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 please. This needs to hit the BAR list soon, because it will make Stormsires absolutely bossing. Reaction, play this after resolving a spell cast by a friendly fighter that damaged 1 or more enemy fighters. Choose one of those enemy fighters. That enemy fighter suffers 1 damage. It's a really good card. It's an instant plink damage. So now we have, plink damage wise, and things like this. We have Abyssos's Withering, we have Sphere of Akshi, we have Encroaching Shadow, we have Lethal Ward, which is the one when you're stood on an objective, and we have Sorceress Flourish to go with this now. It's like a non-restricted pit trap that can be used on spells. It's really powerful. So I'm hoping this will see a restricted list. Whether it does is another question. Inspired Attack. Deploy the first attack with a range of 1 made by an inspired friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 dice and +1 damage. So it's that consistency again. This has been sort of a theme over Season 2, is consistently hitting consistent damage. I like this, but again, it's a ploy. It's really, really highly contested deploys deck. You know, your Gambit side of your deck, really highly contested. And I think, you know, you're really going to have to think about what you're putting in. Long Shot is another one that's coming out. The first attack action with a range of 3 or more made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 range. It's giving, you know, Thudrick's Profiteers, other range 3 factions could be really good for Fast Riders. Just being able to get that extra range, that extra, you know, against other 3 Hex Warbands, being able to shoot from 4 away is really good. And last but not least, we have Fizzle. Play this when an enemy fighter successfully casts a spell. Roll a magic dice. On a lightning bolt, the spell is not cast. So we're now starting to see a little bit of anti-magic come in with Fizzle. And that's quite good. I'm quite happy with that. That could be a card that you see in a lot of decks. But again, it's a ploy. And it's going to be fighting for slots. So I think it'll be in there because I think Yulthari's Guardians and Stormside's Cursebreakers are going to be like top tier now after this set. And so you're going to need something to try and control them a little bit, which is why I think this card will see play. But I think it's going to be a very flex slot where it's put to. Arrow Snare, reaction. Play during this an enemy fighter's attack action with a range of 3 or more that targets a friendly fighter. Before the next attack roll, place a guard token next to the friendly fighter. Or sorry, before the attack roll, place a guard token. So you get guard when being shot at. That's quite cool. I quite like that card actually. And that might go into, depending on what the meta goes like, that might go into my Godsworn Hunt deck that I'm working on. Fumble. First attack action made by an enemy fighter in the next activation has -1 dice to a minimum of 1. Now, Yulthari's Guardians have Curse of Dwindling in their deck, and I saw that used to great effect against Mollog at the last tournament I went to, where Mollog went down to 1 dice to hit, and he was not hitting anything. So, Fumble, very, very good. Like that card, like it a lot. And the last card on it is 2 steps forwards. It's the last Gambit card. Choose 2 friendly fighters and push each of them 1 hex. Then choose an opponent. They choose 1 fighter from their warband and push them up to 1 hex. So it's another push ploy. It's quite good. It might help with an objective based deck, but I don't think it will do much more than that. So it's a nice card, don't get me wrong. I would possibly put that in instead of the commanding, trying to remember the name of the card now, but basically the card from the leaders set that says you have to have your leader on the field to play it, but you can push 2 fighters up to 1 hex. I think this is slightly better because you don't need to have your leader on the field. So many times I've had that happen to me in Quick Advance, that's the name of the card. I've had that happen to me so many times where I've had that card in my hand and my leader's been out of action late in the game and I've not been able to play that card. So at least with 2 steps forward I would be able to play that. Okay, so now we're on to the upgrades, and we're going to start with Huge Presence. This says when an opponent chooses a target for an attack action, they consider this fighter's hex to be a blocked hex unless this fighter is chosen as a target. That's quite good. Whether I waste an upgrade slot, well, not waste, but whether I'd use an upgrade slot on that card, I don't know. I don't think I would. But it is quite good, especially with the changes to magic, where they're choosing for a magic attack action. If you've got your guy in front of your guy, that's providing some cover with huge presence, so that could be quite good. Next one is Leechstone. Wound tokens cannot be removed from the fighter cards of fighters within 2 hexes of this fighter. So this is basically, dare I say it, a way to stop. Well, it doesn't even stop your Fiery's Guardian, so I don't know how good that card is, really. I don't think it's that great. Lethal Reflexes is the next one. Nice picture of the Briar Queen on it. After an enemy fighter's move action, if that fighter left a hex adjacent to this fighter during that move action, roll an attack dice. On a roll of a hammer or a crit, that fighter suffers 1 damage. It's a good card. Well, it's an okay card, and would have situational uses, but generally, unless you're playing against an objective warband, or unless you're playing with an objective warband, generally, if you're moving away from a fighter, you've killed them already. Swift as an arrow. Reaction after an attack action in which there were any number of crits in this fighter's attack or defense roll, push this fighter up to that number of hexes. So again, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be some consistent pushing with it. But again, do you really want to rely on crits to do it? Again, I know John probably will, but certainly doesn't rock my boat. Unnatural Defenses. Reaction after an enemy fighter's attack action with a range of 1 that damages this fighter, roll an attack dice. On a roll of a smash or a crit, hammer or crit, the attacking fighter suffers 1 damage. That's quite good, but obviously for that reaction to work, your fighter will still have to be alive, and that could be a bit dodgy to get to work, especially considering that we are in this one-shot meta now. The next one is Spectral Armor. This fighter's defense characteristic is dodge. If this fighter's defense characteristic is dodge, they have +1 defense. So another acrobatic, but without having to, without having the on guard thing. So it's literally just for dodge-based warbands, and I quite like that. I think it's quite a nice little card. Might see it in some of the more defensive-y type dodge-based warbands, but so not for my Godsworn Hunt at the moment because they are literally just glass cannons. But I like it. The next one is Wall of Force. It's restricted to wizards. 3 hexes. Needs lightning bolts. Does 0 damage. This attack action does no damage when it's successful. It has knockback X, where X is the number of successes in the attack roll. Now, that's quite a cool little card because you can we don't see a massive amount of push manipulation in the game. You've got a few cards with knockback. But you've actually got to be near them. This is 3 hex range. You've got a few cards with knockback. You've got some push ploys like distraction and some of the more faction specific ones, but there isn't a lot of it. So this being a universal card that allows you to just knock people around and push people around is quite good, and I think might see a little bit of play. Eldritch Ward. When this fighter suffers damage, reduce the damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. Restricted to wizards again. Yeah, it's alright. It's not groundbreaking, but it's alright. Last but not least, I think this card, Blazing Soul. I've got a feeling this card will go into every single Mollog deck. Because one of the ways we know how to fight Mollog is to uninspire him. If he's not inspired, he's not as good as he is when he is inspired. That might sound completely, well, Simon, duh, yeah, of course he's not. But it's really important to the Mollog player to be inspired. So Blazing Soul basically says this fighter is inspired and cannot be uninspired. This upgrade cannot be applied to a fighter that cannot be inspired. So it's a nice inspiration mechanic upgrade. So now Mollog could run three inspiration mechanics in Regal Visions, Inspiration Strikes, and this, or this could take the place of Regal Visions in the upgrade slots. But the fact that he cannot be uninspired means that it protects him against one of the problems that he has, which is things like Maddening Cackle, things like Cruel Taunt. Cruel Taunt not so much because he can misdirection it off, but it now means that you don't have to put misdirection in the deck. So I think that's really good for Mollog. Maybe for Magor, because again, Magor likes to be inspired. Maybe for Riptooth as well. All of those ones that like to be inspired. And last but not least, now we have the last of the upgrades in the set. So we've got Quickening Greaves. In each round you can do one of the following. Push this fighter 1 hex before the roll to determine who has the first activation, or push this fighter 1 hex after the final power step. Now, is this a way for objective decks to get a bit better? Possibly. Is this a way to close the gap in aggressive decks? Quite possibly. I think that's quite a good card, and we'll see some play. So next we have Spirit Bond. This says when you apply this upgrade, choose a friendly fighter other than the one who receives this upgrade. While the fighter you chose is on the battlefield, they are always considered to be a supporting this fighter. This is basically Helpful Whispers, but unrestricted, but is a bit more balanced, because obviously your opponent can then go after that that warrior that you've chosen, that fighter that you've chosen, to turn this off. I think you'll see it in Mollog, because I think you'll try and make your opponent come towards you with, by putting this as like a bait card almost. Come and get my Stalag Squid, come on. And then, if you don't come and get my Stalag Squid, I've got Helpful Whispers all the time. So that's good. And Prize Vendetta. When you apply this upgrade, choose an enemy fighter. You can reroll all dice in attack rolls for this fighter's attack action against that target enemy fighter. That's really good. That is really good. Consistency. Unfortunately, it's only against one enemy fighter. So, but it's a good card. It's certainly one of those that comes out instantly as being one of the better cards in the set. And I love the artwork of Scritch and Kirk, and against Fjolgrimner there with his big key axe. Looks brilliant. So that is the end of the Power Unbound bits. The Power Unbound previews that I've had. So again, a massive thank you to John from Can You Roll a Crit. I owe you a beer, mate, when I next see you, when we're at Warhammer World or something. But yeah, that really, really kind of John to let me use the cards. So please do go and check out his blog. It's a brilliant blog, as I've already said. So the last but not least part of my bit that we've done, we now have the 2 new boards that were brought out about a month ago now have names. So the one with the 3 starting hexes all together with the 1 lethal hex and the 2 blocked hexes on is called the Shattered Refractor. And the one with the 3 lethal hexes together and the 1 blocked hex is called the Molten Shard Pit. I really do like the fact that they're giving these names now to these boards. It does make for a really good sort of... for us people who blog and vlog, it does make it really good for us describing what the board is. If we can just say X person's played Molten Shard Pit and I've played the Shattered Refractor, or I've played the Hidden Reliquary, etc., etc. Those sort of things are absolutely brilliant. So kudos to Games Workshop again. And yeah, that's the end of this A Worthy Skull. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe this, and I'll see you next time. I've got a battle report coming up for you between Stormsire's Cursebreakers and Iron Skull's Boys. This was the practice that we had before the Plymouth tournament, so that'll be coming up this week. I'm hoping to get that out on Wednesday, and then there'll be some more coming up in the very, very near future. I've got some recording coming up with some of my friends and that come round in my local play group, so we'll get some of that done. I'm also hoping to get a little bit more equipment soon so I can do some better quality battle reports. But until the next time, guys, keep safe in the Underworlds. I'll see you later. Bye.